Tibetan mountains that has reached an altered state near nirvana, kind of a blobvana, if you will. And there are rumors that he has attained a state of 0 calorie burn.
Couch body.
I'm gonna get myself a modem. 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 I'm gonna.
Hi, Joel Marshall here. Joel Marshall's Lunch Therapy. Today is Interview Friday. We're going through this giant frame here in Dubai, I believe. It's like probably the largest frame ever conceived by man and woman. Here we go. We're going through. Welcome to Interview Friday. Today is a very unusual Interview Friday. Every Interview Friday, we interview a remarkable guest, and today is an exception. There is no guest today, but we're going to have some really great times here. We're going to have some clips from inspirational times from the last year, maybe a little bit longer. I compiled some really good stuff, and I think you're going to enjoy it. Definitely going through these things changed my point of view for the better. The state of blobvana. I might have even reached a state of blobvana. That's our sponsor, Couch Body. Apparently there's a guru somewhere in the Tibetan mountains that reached the state of blobvana, which is a state in which you burn no calories. We can only, aspire to such a thing. Is that a real frame? That is. It's a giant frame. This is what I'm understanding from the visual. It's a giant frame in Dubai. It's a good place to go if you're a criminal, because you can just stand in front of it and be like, I was framed. And they'll leave you alone. There's also all kinds of crazy stuff going on in the news lately. So I hope you're enjoying it. It's, Predator versus Predator. Aliens versus Predator. Is that what it is? Is that what's going on? I saw that somewhere. I thought that was cool. Let's get into this thing. First, I want to say thanks to all the Patreons out there. This show is fueled by Patreons. That's me out there in the ocean there on my little surfboard surfing away. Mama J. Patterson might be nearby. I don't know. She's somewhere. Maybe she's in the drone filming it. I don't know. But that's just it. It's all there is. Us out there in the ocean, me and the hummingbirds. You see some of them listed below there. Pam Palmieri recommended a great guest. We got some great guests coming ahead on Interview Friday. Really looking forward to that. Thank you, Mary Marks. Thank you, Jason Edelman. Let's see what Kamala says here. I think when you're dead, you also burn no calories. That's debatable. Joni Ernst told me that we were all going to die, so at least there's no calorie burn to look forward to. Could be. There, scientists have found a state in between life and death. And I don't know what it's called, because I only read the title. Because that's the way we get our news these days. We just read the title and make our own conjectures from there. And that's maybe one of the problems going on in society. Howard Aronin is here. I just burned no calories, and then I failed and ate a muffin. Yes, I love muffins. Muffins are beautiful. I love breathing also. Breathing is another one of my favorite pastimes, and we're going to do that right now. Breathe your lunch. I wondered who Joni was. That, by the way, intro is an intro we've had on the show for many, many years. And everyone always asks if that's Guignel, who is one of the hummingbirds, one of the viewers of the show and contributors to the show. And I always said it was, but it wasn't. But now it is, because I have placed him in there. We went to the beach. We shot that. You're welcome. Joni is the best kind of senator, the one that takes away your doctor and then reminds you that you were going to die anyway. Oh, it's that. That's who that was. Yes. We try to keep politics out of the show, but it's really hard to stay away from politics in this particular climate. And I'm not talking about summer. Apparently in Kansas, they're having floods. Is this true? Please, somebody check this out. We got to find out about Mama J. I sent her a message. Mama J, for those of you that may not know, is the co-host of the Tuesday episode of Lunch Therapy. Behind me, Healing Vibrations. Now let's breathe. In through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. And let it go. This is going to be a really interesting show. I think you're going to love it. Very excited about that. And I've got another thing from Mike Knox. He made a commercial for us. In through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. Let it go. Can't really control everything. It's one of the things that I have learned this week. Sometimes when you lose your guest, and maybe you have a little bit of time to find another one, a lot of times that's when I find the most amazing guest. This time, it didn't happen. But it gave me a chance to reflect on all the guests that we've had on the show and distill it down just to a few and some of their really inspirational messages and some of their insightful thoughts. And that's what I'm going to present to you today. It's pretty cool. One more time. In through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. Let it go. I got to say that I'm very grateful for all the guests that we've had on the show. Sometimes we move along so fast, week after week after week, you don't have time to reflect on all the messages that we're getting from these people, all the lives that they talk about, the lives that they've had, the inspiration that we get from these people, how it affects our lives, how we affect their lives, which is pretty cool too. Liz Glazer, who was a guest on the show a few years ago, she and I were in a class about the path, where we were kind of charting our path. And Liz, I think, put on that path that she wanted to be on The Tonight Show. And you know what? Last night, Liz Glazer was on The Tonight Show. So that's pretty cool. Pretty amazing. She killed it. I invite you to watch that. Check it out. Plus, not only that, she premiered her special. This is Liz there. Do You Know Who I'm Not? Full special. It's available on YouTube. And it was announced last night on the Jimmy Fallon Show, The Tonight Show, the classic Tonight Show. So that's pretty cool. Really happy for her. There she is, all smiles on The Tonight Show. So that's cool. She's a big comedian these days. She looked ecstatic. Yeah, she did. And she killed it. It was great. Now here's a message from Mike Knox about merch.
Hi, get yourself some trash can of merch at Joe Marshall's Lunch Therapy.
I think we got to hear that again.
Hi, Get yourself some Trash Panda merch at Joe Marshall's Lunch Therapy.
I thought that was Mike Knox, but I'm not sure now. Because that seemed like a different kind of, seemed like a, did he have a raccoon hat on? I don't know. I don't know if I'd wear that into the Trash Panda Comedy Club. That'd be not good. Not good. Let's take a look again.
Hey,
Okay.
get yourself some Trash Panda.
No, that's clearly faux fur. I think it's faux fur. Faux fur. Used to know a guy named Topher Fofer. He was hilarious. All right, Interview Friday. Let's get into this thing. I don't know how it's going to go. It should be fun. All right, there I am. Okay, this is the Lunch Therapy Interview Friday where we take a look back on just a handful of people that have been on the show. This might be some kind of a regular thing that we do where we take a look at some of the cool stuff. This is Jet Eveleth. I saw her originally at a place called Public Displays of Altadena. I heard about her from a friend. Gina. She was like, "You got to get Jet on the show because she is incredible. She does something called Clown Church, and people have these experiences. We got really into the clown thing on this show. Still into it. We're gonna have to bring some more clowns on. But Jet, they did this show at Public Displays of Altadena, which no longer exists. God rest its soul. It will be back, or maybe it is back, but it burnt down in the fires in Altadena. Just burnt to the ground. But before it burnt to the ground, we were able to see the show Three Sisters, which was hilarious. And that's what she's talking about in this clip. Three Sisters. So it was a show where, and it still is a show, and I think it went to Edinburgh, where the three sisters, not the traditional three sisters from the play, but three other sisters. And they try and perform this very dramatic piece, and they keep failing. And here's what she said about it. So do you think that the acting that you're trying to achieve in this show is like too difficult to attain? Trying to make this scene happen?
Well, I think acting in general is one of the most difficult things in the world. To be a really great actor, to really have the bar.
Yeah.
Daniel Day-Lewis, Meryl Streep bar. None of us will really get there. So what a great journey.
Yeah.
We'll get better.
I like the idea of trying to, write something that's so dramatic that you just could never achieve it. It's so much fun to watch you try. Like anybody who gets a chance to see this show should see the show. Yes. If you get a chance to see Three Sisters, check it out. Hoppe Commando Freude. Yes, good to see you, Jose Salas. Yeah, the show was hilarious. They just kept trying to do this thing. And the thing about clowns, from what I've learned, is clowns like to fail. Or maybe they don't like to fail, but they do it over and over again, and it's very entertaining. I asked Jet if there was some kind of therapeutical nature to being a clown, if it was some kind of therapy on stage when you're performing. Here's what she said.
The show, I don't want my shows to be therapy because I like them to be art,
Yeah. That's a good point. So somebody, Jack Grapes, the great writing teacher, he says, we don't care that the audience doesn't care that the dancer's toes are broken or whatever. They still want to see her standing on point, Yeah. And it's irrelevant. So sometimes you gotta work through that pain and also make it about them. Because like that's what I think is bad about like bad improv is you go there and you feel like they had a party on stage and the audience is just like you're paying for it. You know what I mean?
I would say majority of improv is like people are having a great time doing it,
Yeah.
but it's rarely pleasurable to watch.
That's funny. I've always thought that about improv. Of course, there's incredible improv and there's sketch comedy and all these different things. But a lot of times the clowns and the improv people bicker about improv and clown. And a lot of the clowns, they came from improv. I'd say that clown is probably a mashup. These clowns come from the circus, Cirque du Soleil. Lots of people have been on the show from Cirque du Soleil. And then they're tired of doing Cirque du Soleil, or maybe they aged out of it. And then the improv people are sick of doing improv because they're like, what else is there? And they explode into this theater scene called clown. Mama J. Yeah, somebody got to find out about Mama J. Oh, there's Mama J. Okay. Tell us, Mama J, is it flooding there in Kansas? Let us know. Let us know. Because we were worried about you. So I asked, oftentimes I will ask my guest about anxiety, because this show obviously is lunch therapy, and it is somewhat therapeutic, even though that goes against what Jet was talking about, I think. But it's therapeutic for me. It's therapeutic for people watching. So a lot of times this show started during COVID. And right at the beginning of COVID, this show began, for those of you who may have not seen it. And there was a lot of anxiety, as you can imagine. So I asked Jet about anxiety and if she's ever had a problem with it. Have you ever struggled with anxiety at all?
Not in a way that would be really greater than just being a living organism that's trying to survive.
Right.
I feel
that just the normal low level anxiety that
feels like,
feels.
hey, did I shut off the oven? I have that. Yeah. But I did as a kid. I had some anxiety, and I just really created a bunch of habits to kind of get my head around it, because I think everything is just neural pathways, and you always have the invitation to create new ones, but creating new ones hurts like a motherfucker.
Yeah.
No one wants to do them. So most people would rather have anxiety than the ache of changing your life, so you no longer have that level of anxiety.
That was intense. Now, I probably should have asked her what her 3 practices were, or what her practices were that she came up with as a child to deal with anxiety. I don't think that I did. But one of the things about Jet is that she has multiple degrees. And she has these high-level degrees. So sometimes she says stuff like, I understand maybe about creating neural pathways, but then what she was talking about creating new ones and how it's difficult, so we don't want to do it. That's kind of interesting. Like, we just want to kind of stay where we are because it's comfortable. And that, a lot of times, can be the death of creativity. It can be the death of growing and improving, perhaps. All right, let's find out from Mama J what's going on. It's not flooding now. We live in an area safe from all that. Thanks for checking. Yeah, I was worried about your basement, Mama J. What a statement. I have anxiety. Have anxiety rather than try not to. Just have it. Yeah. We all have anxiety. Just different levels of it at different times. I like what she said. I'm like, did I leave the stove on? We're comfortable with the suffering we know. I think that is what she was talking about. And sometimes we don't want to get out of it. And we want to, just stay in the mutt. The mutt. No mutt, no lotus. Thich Nhat Hanh. Quote from Thich Nhat Hanh. Amy Linden did a podcast this week about anxiety in the actor. Oh, that's always very interesting. Now, Jet also has something called Clown Church. And on the show, we always talk about, or oftentimes we'll talk about what I call tripping out. People tripping on mushrooms, people tripping on LSD, people having a psychedelic experience. Sometimes people have a psychedelic experience right in the Oval Office. I don't know. There's all kinds of that going on, but not for me. I'm like, no, I don't think I want to do that because I'm afraid that I will lose my shit, as it were. Do something untoward to myself, not damaging, but perhaps embarrassing. So Jet has this thing called clown church. And I don't know. Do clowns get embarrassed? That's a good question. Is it relevant? Are they trying to be embarrassed? Is there some kind of a S&M quality to it where they want to be embarrassed? I don't know. Let's find out about clown church, though. Pretty interesting.
Yeah. Is clown intrinsically spiritual? I can't tell you, but when I do it, it is. And then because it was Sunday mornings, we started calling it clown church. And now kind of everything I do is under that guise because I want people to know when they step in, things are going to get a little freaky, like let's be ready. And most people, then they find it knowing, oh, okay, this is going to be a trip. I've literally found people who came to me because they were at a party and they said, I've done ayahuasca and I'm just searching for that feeling. And somebody said, you should go to clown church.
Yeah, I have heard, someone has told me that too about this. They're like, because I'm like, people are like, you should take mushrooms or you should do ayahuasca. And I'm like, I'm too scared to do anything like that. And I've just not been a person that takes drugs, and mainly out of fear of what I would do. But then somebody was saying, this, you can get to this like kind of euphoric state or this psychedelic kind of state through clowning. And I was like, what? You can? Yeah. That is so cool. Clowning is like, it's interesting because there's a lot that people get out of it. And one of the things that we talk about with the clowning, one of the things that I noticed from going to see like Red Bastard or Chad Damiani, some of the performers that are here are, Three Sisters and lots of great performing that goes on at like the Elysian Theater or the Lyric Theater here, is that when I laugh in that situation, it's a kind of a deeper laugh than I do sometimes with stand-up comedy. Sometimes I'm laughing up here with stand-up comedy. But that laugh where where you and your friend just, like you're in class and you're not supposed to laugh and it's very serious, and all of a sudden you just can't control yourself from laughing. That kind of laughter, or that when you both have the same joke at the same time, all the weird stuff that happens sort of from what I like to call randomity. It seems almost random, where you create a situation where people have to struggle against something and then something happens, then we're all surprised by it, including the performers as well. People were saying that they felt like they were tripping while clowning. And I don't mean tripping over a banana peel either. I would like to, I can't believe I haven't attended clown church. It's because we're just moving forward with this show rather than sometimes taking this step back like this. It's really kind of a treat. I think it's breaking free of social norms on a deep level. I think that makes sense too. Let's see what she said about, I asked her about like when was the first time she found that deep laugh. And she talks about something from her childhood. Do you think there was something early on where you experienced that kind of a laugh that you were like, I got to find more of this?
I mean, I do remember moments of not trying to be funny as a kid and saying something and getting that laugh from a grandfather. Both of my grandfathers really got a kick out of me, and I was just saying my truth. Yeah. And they thought it was funny. And, when I was real little, my mother had this idea that my sister should be a model. And so she put her in a pageant. Mm-hmm. And when she got to the pageant, they said, which one are you putting in? And then she said, I'll put all of them in. She had this thought of like, why don't I just put all my kids in? Yeah. Because it would up her chances if this was Vegas, My dad didn't want to do it. It was just like I think like a JCPenney. I don't know. It wasn't like, an expensive thing. You had your kid walk up and down this runway and there were judges in an audience. And she threw me in. I was maybe 2.5 or 3. And my sister was 4 or 5. And my brother was 8. And she said, Jim, tell Jet what to do. And so backstage, my brother said, I want you to go out. And every time you see a bouquet, because there were bouquets all along the runway, He said, every time you see a bouquet, you do a turn. When you get to the end, I want you to look at the judges and blow them a kiss. I was like, sure. My brother is.
You were 2 years,
3, maybe 2.5 or 3.
Wow. Yeah.
But I idolized my older brother. Did everything he told us. We did a lot of, even at a young age in our house, we put on a lot of performances. So it was like, okay, yeah, I know how to do that. And so I went out, and my mother said I was the youngest in the whole show. I turned at every bouquet, and everyone went, oh my God. And then when I got to the end, I blew a kiss, and she said the whole audience went, oh. And then I looked, and my brother had told me, if you do all of this, you'll get a trophy.
Wow.
So I blew them all a kiss, and then I looked at the judges, and I said, now where's my trophy? And the audience went crazy.
Yeah, I bet they did. And you, as the performer, you're just like asking where my trophy is.
And I remember in that moment,
yeah,
I no longer wanted the trophy. I wanted more of that life. And
wow.
I was forever changed, because I'm not into trophies. I live kind of like a monk who just chooses laughter,
And that was the trophy. That's the trophy. Big. Okay. All right. So the next person that we had on the show, or another person that I wanted to call attention to, is this Ryan Pyle. Now, Ryan was recommended to me by Mike Knox, who you saw his character advertising the Trash Panda Comedy Club. And Ryan is he was described to me as an adventurer. This is a guy who doesn't let people tell him how to do anything. And he just goes out there and does these things. He was living in China. And he and his brother rode their motorcycles. They got motorcycles and then rode them all the way around China, seemingly to their great peril. But they made a movie out of it, and then they made it into a show. So let's see a little bit about what he has to say. Yeah, this was a good one, huh, Mama J? Kamala, by the way, Kamala Lopez, in the chat room right now, she's going to be on Ryan Pyle's podcast. They're going to tape it today, so look forward to that.
And our guide on day one said, you guys are all going to make it up to the summit, because this is 100%, it's like 95% mental, 5% physical. And it's funny, like all these people out there, they always ask me like, oh, what do you do training wise, to climb all these mountains and walk across all these deserts or ride these motorcycles? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I don't do anything. You just have to be ready for the day. And know that you're going to kind of push through and be on the right side of being mentally strong when you have to be mentally strong.
Mentally strong when you have to be mentally strong. Sometimes I'm not there. Sometimes I have to tell myself, Joel, you got to be mentally strong. But of course, I don't climb up mountains. We're going to have a guest on the show coming up soon, a comedian who climbed Mount Kilimanjaro and then climbed Everest recently. So we're going to have some more adventurers on the show. Here's Ryan talking about not asking for permission.
6 months before we wanted to do the trip, we wrote to everyone, Travel Channel, Nat Geo, Discovery, anyone that would be interested in this kind of genre. And they all just said no. And we were just like, well, fuck that. There's a story here. Mm-hmm. People have not seen this part of China in this way ever before. And there's value in that. But eventually, we found a distributor and we got it sold to Travel Channel, which was great. And then they signed on for India, and then they signed on for Brazil. And then, BBC worked with me on Extreme Treks. So it's not the best way to start, but if you've exhausted everything else, at the end of the day, you just have to go and make stuff and go out and film stuff and go out and do the things you want to do, because there's value in having that content and telling those stories, even if other people don't see it at the same time as you. And here I was living by the seat of my pants, and I'm like, okay, let's ride a motorcycle around China and set a Guinness World Record. No one's done it before, but I'm sure we can make it happen. As long as we've got a bank account that'll pay for the gas and the food and the accommodations and stuff like that. And we just went for it. So I don't know. I feel like things have gotten so expensive the last like 4 or 5 years, the way the world has kind of gone, that the cost of living crisis, that people talk about has really crushed the creative spirit in many ways, I think.
Happen. Yeah, we can't let that happen. We cannot let that happen. I think it's so interesting too. That I think it's your brother who said this, that he saw the movie Wall Street, like back in the 80s, and was like, and the thing that he got from it was, at some point, Charlie Sheen says, "I'm going to go to China and ride my motorcycle around China," and that was the inspiration. Yeah. I think that's cool that you watched that movie and that was what you got out of it.
So when Charlie Sheen said that, he's like, Charlie Sheen was like, "I want to make enough money so I can just go to China and ride a motorcycle for months without having to talk to anyone." That really hit with my brother, and then I was living in China, and then I knew how to do the trip, so it was great. Wow.
So where does somebody find that kind of mental toughness? Sometimes I think it comes through just doing. Clearly, a lot of times, I mean, when they rode their motorcycle around China, motorcycles, this is around China. They didn't speak the language. They didn't even ride motorcycles. I mean, it seems crazy sometimes, but sometimes you got to just do that. And the type of mental toughness is interesting because he says where he got it.
But if you're not mentally tough, you're never going to get past 10 minutes.
Yeah,
it's
true.
So it's the same with mountain climbing. It's the same with going off on these massive adventure motorcycle rides. You just kind of have to be mentally engaged with the fact that this is life for the next 2 months, and this is the task that you set out, and there's no deviating from that path.
You said in one of your interviews that Michael Jordan was a big inspiration to you as well.
Oh man, up. I mean, I grew up in the 80s, Magic, Bird, Jordan, his dominance, his mind games, his mental toughness, his gambling, his absolutely, refusal to bend the knee to anyone. He just dominated in a way that had never really been done before, I think. And it was, it was exciting to watch someone just not take anyone else's shit. And I love that.
So Karen Haber is someone who I came across at I was at the Fourth Wall open mic, I believe was the first time that I saw her. She is such a character, such a loving person, hilarious comedian, extremely unique. And what I found out about Karen was that she was on her, what are they calling this now? Third act, maybe? She had been a big comedian, had been a regular at the Comedy Store, adopted some kids, went off and raised the kids, and was now ready to come back. And she had been doing other things like metalsmithing and other art forms and things like that, but she quit comedy pretty much cold turkey. And now she was back, and she went and did open mics, which was kind of a new thing on the landscape since she'd been in the comedy world. She's just a real amazing person. Here's a clip from Karen.
So there's 3 guys after us. There's the drug makers. Mm-hmm. They want to bleed us dry.
Yeah.
There's the insurance companies.
Oh, yeah.
They want to take all our money and not give us the benefits. And then CVS, for example, they set their own prices.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And there's price gouging going on and things like that. They've got supermarkets recently admitting to have been price gouging through COVID, raising the price of bread and things that we needed,
Right. There was no inflation. Inflation was corporate greed gouging.
And I think that there's definitely a place for this in comedy. And if you can make it funny, you can get so many messages out there that, that people are being entertained by, but also it brings us together because we're all like, I feel the same way, rather than this dividing. And I think that's also where your kind of purpose. I love the fact that you state a purpose, and your purpose is love. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And it's your comedy can ride on that. And that goes beyond just jokes, brings people together, gets messages out. Because you're an activist as well, right? Yeah. And you have an incredible talent, so you can utilize that however you wish, for good or for bad. Using it for good or for bad. That's interesting because a lot of times, when you do political comedy, you take a risk. And sometimes it doesn't go over that well. Sometimes you're in a group of people that don't agree with you, or they don't want to agree with you, or they don't want to make any new neural pathways. And maybe you don't want to make any new neural pathways. So there's a lot of anxiety and a lot of anger that comes out of that. And one of the things that's great about Karen is she's a great storyteller. And she will weave in some of her opinions, many of them strong opinions. Some of them maybe not very popular, like veganism. People don't want to hear about animal cruelty. The drug industry, the inflation. But she weaves it in such a way, and she's so personable that makes people think. I want to acknowledge here, Mama J says, my husband Denny helped me become mentally strong, tough on our travels on a motorcycle, bicycles, and dual sports. Yeah, you are mentally tough, Mama J. It's amazing what you do. Yeah, it's incredible that you did all that. Karen also talks about her comeback.
I don't even know if they had open mics or I don't know when they were invented, but I'm glad they have them now. And I go to them all the time because when I came back to stand up 2 years ago, I was terrible. And I was afraid of the audience.
Really?
Yeah. Even at open mic with 4 people, I was afraid of those 4 people. And, but I did over 200 of them to get my craft back.
Wow.
So, yay, open mics. Thank you, open mics.
Yeah. Thanks to people like Joe Menente out there that keep these things
going. Joe Menente. Shout out to Joe Menente.
Shout out to Joe Menente. Joe Menente and the open mics. I don't know what people would do without those today. It's interesting to hear, too, about how people come up with their ideas and how they write. We're going to have a clip from Karen talking about that, about writing. Some people say they like to talk it out and then later listen to it, put it on the paper. I know Liz Glazer was talking about that. Different comedians go about solving this problem of coming up with comedy in different ways. Some people go straight to the page. Some people talk it out. Some people never go to the page, which I think eventually you have to. But she got some really good encouragement early on from none other than Robin Williams.
I'm an actress.
Yeah.
And people were always telling me, oh, you should be a stand-up comic. You should do stand-up comedy. I ignored it because I didn't really know stand-up comedy. I didn't stay up late, so I never saw late night. My parents didn't stay up late, so I didn't grow up watching late night. I really didn't know anything about comedy. But there was this girl in my acting class whose husband was a comedian.
Yeah? And what happened?
He kept telling me to do it. It was Robin. And he kept telling me, do it, be a comic. You could be a Jewish princess comic. I had no idea what he was talking about. But I wasn't getting any acting work.
Robin Williams convinced you to do comedy. Wow, that's interesting. Wow.
Just like you convinced Jenny Sykes.
Yes, I convinced her. It's funny how people are afraid to say famous people's names when they knew them or at any point in time. We're also afraid because of that name dropping thing. People always say, oh, you're name dropping. I think we ought to put a ban on the whole name dropping thing. Boy, it would be a pleasure if somebody was worried that they were dropping your name. I mean, is it that fragile? Are these things that fragile? What about, okay, so now I mentioned earlier about Karen being a vegan, and I asked her about that. You're a vegan, though, right?
Yes.
How have you been a vegan?
Oh, well, I've been a vegetarian since I'm a teenager.
Oh, wow.
Because I didn't realize all the cruelty in dairy and eggs. So I would have yogurt and I would eat eggs. But then I found out how all the cruelty starts with milk and dairy.
Really?
When they enslave these little girl cows.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even want to say it in your show how terrible it is. And
It
then,
is terrible.
And with the birds too. People forget chickens are funny, wonderful little birds that like to tell jokes to each other and hang out. So then now I've been so I was a vegan. But then my doctor said, oh, your cholesterol is going too low. You have to be a vegetarian again.
Too
So
low?
I did it. But he was wrong. And now I've been a vegan for about 13 years again. And my cholesterol is really low, which is really good.
Can you have too low cholesterol? I suppose so. You can have too low blood pressure, I guess. Yeah, so I don't know. It makes you think. Chickens are funny. That's a quote, a new quote for lunch therapy. Chickens are funny. So here's the thing I was talking to about writing, and then we're going to have one more person.
And
That's right. Yeah.
No matter if I'm typing on the screen or writing in a notebook, I think there's magic from mind to hand to paper. Because then all these things appear that are really great, and that's how I write.
Yes. What do you think it is about that mind to hand?
I don't know, but it's very powerful.
Sometimes it feels like you're. This is weird to say, but sometimes it feels like you're channeling ideas. You know what I mean? Like there's things being between mind to hand. There's things coming in that you're not like aware of, and you're like, oh, that's a good one. You know, that's or do you? I feel like the next step for comedians of like my level is organization. Because I feel like organization is, because you have all these thoughts and you do these open mics and you do these things, but they can just go flying off into nowhere if you don't grab them and put them in some kind of order.
And not only that, the second you have an idea, like if you're lying in bed in the morning, or you're driving, or you're talking to your friends and you say something funny, you think you're going to remember it, but you never
do. Yes.
So don't play that game with yourself. Write it down immediately.
Write it down immediately. I have a wall of note cards right over here to my right. And I think maybe after that conversation, I was like, I gotta get organized. Had to do a bigger show. It's like, how do you do it? Put it on the wall. I think I was inspired also by Mike Birbiglia. And of course, every other screenplay writer that ever lived, they always use these little note cards. And they put them on the wall. And I'm always like trying to do everything digitally. And sometimes you just need to look at a wall. And you know what's great about it too? Is I can take jokes. Like here's one that says, doctors in LA, anosmia. It's like a little routine. I can take them, I can tape them together and go off and do a show. I don't like to bring the note cards on stage. But some people do. All right, so let's see. Pee Wee Herman doc. Huge wall of notes. Yeah. Whenever you see somebody productive, a lot of times they have a huge wall of notes. That was when they were writing the script for Pee Wee's Big Adventure. Hey, if you haven't seen the Pee Wee Herman doc, the Paul Rubens doc, it's called Pee Wee as Himself. Check it out. It's very interesting. Very interesting. He was an amazing person. And like all of us, had his demons, as they say. Okay, one more person I've really... This guy is... I mean, everything that comes out of his mouth is useful. This is Richard Lawson. Richard Lawson was a teacher of mine many years ago, an acting teacher. He's got an amazing career that spans from, like Denny, Mama J, he was in Vietnam. I believe that he was a medic. He was in the plane crash that went into the Potomac. Just happened to be in that as well. Survived, saved some people. He was in Poltergeist. Multiple other movies. It's like almost like he's lived more than one person's life. Sometimes we get people on the show that are like that. They've lived these Swiss Army knives of lives. Like he was a high-level golfer at one point. Anyway, here's what he had to say. Here's a little conversation.
No Place to Be Somebody you mentioned, which I did in 1971.
Yeah.
You know, they met on the banks of the Potomac, the rich, the great, and the small. It's impossible to tell you. You should have been there and seen it all. They came by train, by plane, by bus, and by car, bicycle and tricycle from near and very far, and on mule and on horseback with greasy back and croaker sack, buckboards and clapboard. I could go on and on and on and on.
It.
As a poem from 1971. So these things are anchored in my soul.
Part of you.
So
You're
what imposter? What imposter can know? If somebody come and try to call me an imposter, so the imposter is you doing the work, rolling up your sleeve, gathering and making sure you put up on your wall the stuff to remind you, I did that, I did that, I did that. So there's no imposter in that. You have to create evidence so that no one can take that away from you. No one can take away my career and the legacy that I've created. No one can do that. No one can take it away from you.
My wife, Kamala, she took all my flyers, my comedy flyers from all the different comedy shows that I've done, and she put them on the refrigerator. She like covered the refrigerator with them. And it had such an effect on me because every time I go to open the refrigerator, I see all these things. Or when I'm about to go out to do a comedy show, I look at that and I'm like, you got this, you know? And
that's what
it made
I'm saying.
Such a big difference. I didn't even know, why she was doing it at the time, but it really had such a great impact. And that's also people in your vicinity helping you,
yes,
by uplifting you,
yes,
or reminding you. Yeah, Richard Lawson, incredible human being. I invite you to look at that episode and also the other one that he did. He's been on the show twice because it's just a wealth of information. So thank you for joining me today on this little adventure into just a handful of interviews from Lunch Therapy. Yes, thank you, Kamala, for that. That was really nice. Sometimes, we really have to value our community and our people around us and our people that are close to us, because sometimes we are so busy trying to do some big thing that we don't realize we're already loved. You already have as much love as you can possibly handle. Just start giving it away. It's a good show. Yes, value everybody. So value everybody. Thank you, Mama J. Very, very grateful to you. So glad that we met. So glad that you're a part of this show. People should tune in on Tuesdays. If they don't, on Tuesdays at noon Pacific time. We're creating evidence, as Richard Lawson says. We're also giving away money. I think on this Tuesday we're going to give away $30. $30. Thank you, Kamala. Tell everyone about that class we took at Yale last week. Okay, so there was a class. We were at Yale reunion, Kamala's reunion, and there was a class on happiness, and you can take it on Coursera. So we took like the 1 hour version of this whole class. What was happening was there were people that were very depressed, students in particular. And some of this is wrong. So you have to go to Coursera to check out the class, because I'm just speaking extempore, as they say. Well, Boney is Googling the class for y'all. We'll put a link in the show notes. But so anyways, they were concerned because students were, some of them were suicidal. Science of Well-Being is the name of the show. Or the show. Science of Well-Being. This is on Coursera. 4 million people are enrolled in it. More than 4 million. You can enroll for free. And she just breaks down scientifically how to be happy. And a lot of the things are very, very simple. And some of the things are things you never thought of doing. And some of the things are neural pathways where you're like, I don't know if I want to do that. I don't know if I want to strike up a conversation with somebody on the subway. One of the things they found out, this was really interesting, was that striking up a conversation with a stranger on, say, like the subway or on an airplane or something like that can actually make you happier for months. It actually, they graph it out and they find out that people are happier just because of that one human interaction. Turns out we're all very social beings, even though a lot of us are curmudgeons. Or a lot of us are like, I'm fine with my friends. Sometimes you feel uncomfortable. So Science of Well-Being, Coursera. Check it out. It's the whole course. Take a class at Yale University, just like C. Thomas Howell. No, not C. Thomas Howell. I don't know if he went there. I don't know why C. Thomas Howell just came to my mind. So now, thank you all for being here today. Pass this show around, share it with somebody. There's some good information in there, or just share one of the interviews with one of these fine people or anyone else. It was really sort of not random, but sort of like just off the top of my head of like some people that I thought would be interesting to put together as I was freaking out about not having a guest for the show today. And you know what? I think it might be one of the best shows, because we get to see all these different points of views of some very, very different people. And behind me, by the way, is a meditation for manta ray advocates. That is an incredible thing if you go to Hawaii and you want to swim with manta rays. Go there. And you can see the interview with Martina Wing, who was one of the, I don't know, maybe first year interviews on lunch therapy. And then they have meditations that you can do, videos like the one behind me, to remember your experience with the manta rays, or maybe this is the only way you can have that experience. All right, thanks everybody for being here. We're going to dance it out with one of my favorite dance breaks, Michael J. Gonzalez, who was also a guest on the show. And we're going to call it a day. Have a great weekend. We'll see you on Tuesday for more lunch therapy.
We're gonna ride till we fall. They say we got no future at all. They wanna keep us out, can't hold us down anymore. Gonna ride till we fall.
When we hit the bottom, nothing's gonna stop us. Climb to the top with you. We could be the greatest ones who ever made it. Yeah, I could be talking you. They're tryna hate, but we won't change anything at all. Oh, we're gonna ride till we fall. They think we just dropouts, living at our mom's house. Parents must be so proud, they know it all. They don't speak our language, they say we're too savage. Yeah, no, we don't give up anymore. We're gonna ride till we fall. We're gonna ride till we fall.
Ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-